As we're talking about the playoffs, we have to talk about a team that didn't even get there, and that is the Phoenix Suns. Now, I've talked ad nauseum about KD and his part in this Phoenix Suns team essentially not reaching the goals that they hoped to reach. But the newest report is not report. The newest thing coming out of Suns organization is Mike Budenholzer was fired after the Suns missed the playoffs. Was fired after this was his first year. He's one and done. Taylor Jenkins getting fired is surprising. Mike Malone getting fired is surprising. Mike Budenholzer getting fired is not surprising at all. I'm going to talk about Matt Ishbia in a second. But when you have one of, if not the most expensive team in basketball, when you have two Olympic gold medalists plus a player that has led the league in scoring before, when you have a former NBA champion, a former MVP, when you have all NBA teams, members on the same team, when you have a player whose career high is 70 points, the expectation is to, at the bare minimum, make the playoffs. And when you don't meet the bare minimum expectations, might I add, you get what you get. I don't think Mike Budenholzer was the main issue when we talk about all the issues that the Phoenix Suns have. But I do think this, and I've said this before, you can blame the new age athlete for maybe their heightened sensitivity when it comes to coaching. And how, it's always been talked about how a lot of, coaches and the coaching approach is different from how it was back in the day to now. You can be a little bit more tougher, a little bit more loud and expressive back then than you could be now. So if you want to blame it on that, I get it. But it didn't seem like, in fact, it seemed like since they got Mike Budenholzer, who, might I add, is a NBA champion head coach. Since they got Mike Budenholzer, it didn't seem like it was the right fit. It seemed like Mike Budenholzer had a way of winning, had his philosophy and how he thought winning should go. And it's very hard to tell a person who is the head coach of a team that has won an NBA championship that their way is not right. So he's used to a certain way of doing things. Obviously, the Phoenix Suns has a way of doing other things. Mind you, this team, this franchise has never won an NBA championship. So when you have someone like Mike Budenholzer and you hear reports of just unrest in the locker room, I think a report came out, I could be wrong, but I think a report came out saying that Bradley Beal was saying Mike Budenholzer asked him to play more like Jrue Holiday, which I can understand how that's disrespectful. I mean, you're asking him to play like another player, but you also have to understand Jrue Holiday was one of the key pieces to that Bucks team winning a championship Might I add, over the Phoenix Suns. Or when you hear reports saying that him and Devin Booker had friction because Devin Booker was trying to be more vocal than Budenholzer in the timeouts, and Mike Budenholzer didn't appreciate the lack of defense that came from someone like Devin Booker, someone like Bradley Beal, someone like Kevin Durant. And then obviously them trying to trade Kevin Durant was, it just didn't seem like it was it looked like it could have been a perfect fit, but once we saw more evidence, it just didn't seem like a perfect fit. It seemed like the Phoenix Suns was the worst organization to be a part of in all of basketball, honestly. And it's unfortunate that they didn't make the playoffs, which brings me to Matt Ishbia, who is the puppeteer, is the orchestrator of all this. Anything that could have been said about this team has been said. The whole, that's not how you build a big three, has been said. Who would have thought that Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker, three players that essentially do the same exact thing, wasn't going to work? Who would have thought that you having a team that has Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal and not adequately building around them wasn't going to work? Who would have thought that a team that has those three players as your best players and not one defensive player around them, who would have thought that that team wasn't going to be good defensively? Who would have thought that a team that hired a coach, and I think month one we heard issues with players and Mike Budenholzer. Who would have thought that that wasn't going to work? Who would have thought that an organization that is currently playing three head coaches, not one of them is in the building, might I add you, but an organization that is paying three coaches right now, who would have thought that that wasn't going to work? It's early, and there have been some nasty owners in the NBA. There have been some god-awful owners in the NBA. But I think that just basketball decisions alone, I'm not talking about anything personal, nothing. Basketball decisions alone, Matt Ishbia is finding himself in a very elite class. Because in a very short time, because I think he's been the owner for what? 2, maybe 3 years? Maybe 4. He is on a list of possibly the worst decision maker, worst owner in basketball. And when you look at just how bad think about this. This team that had Devin Booker, that had Chris Paul, that had DeAndre Ayton, that had Mikal Bridges, that had Cam Johnson. This team was just in the finals 3-4 years ago. In 4 years, this team went from a finals team, yes, they didn't win, but a finals team, to now one of the worst jobs in basketball because you're so constrained to contracts. One of which is going to damn near be impossible to move, and that's Bradley Beal, because Washington was the smart organization to give him a no-trade clause. You guys were the smart organization to trade for him and trade the house for Bradley Beal. I don't think they have a draft pick until like 2033. So your future is essentially cooked for three players that couldn't even get you to the playoffs. Mind you, they got to the playoffs last year and got swept. I think Mike Budenholzer is a good coach. I don't think he was good for this organization. And I think that there are some coaching habits that he probably should change. But when you have all this expectation, when you have a payroll as expensive as this, when you have two superstars and a star, and you don't make the playoffs, yes, heads are gonna roll. Maybe not the correct heads, because to me, the biggest culprit in this is Mac Ishbia, but what are you gonna do to him? But it's just crazy how in a span of 4 to 5 years, the Phoenix Suns was looked at as one of the, it was in the championship. They were looked at as one of the best teams in basketball. Now they're looked at not as one of the worst teams, but one of the worst situations to go into, which is what I am fascinated to see who will be their next head coach. Because a lot of head coaches don't want to deal with what they're going to have to deal with. This team is going to be extremely bad. And one thing that we know from Taylor Jenkins, one thing that we know from Mike Malone, one thing that we know from Mike Budenholzer, if you don't meet expectations and quickly, it don't matter what you do. Taylor Jenkins was the winningest coach in Grizzlies history. Mike Malone 2 years ago was an NBA champion. Mike Budenholzer was an NBA champion. If you don't win immediately, or you don't meet expectations, no matter how high, no matter how unrealistic it is, you're out of here. And I don't know the coach that is going to, the good coach that is going to stop everything and take a job knowing that your days are numbered. And ain't no telling, you're not going to have Kevin Durant next year. Good luck trying to trade Bradley Beal. So I can see it now. They're trying desperately to trade Bradley Beal. A lot of teams know that they're trying to trade Bradley Beal, so they're not going to give them the compensation that they think they deserve. So then you're going to hear reports saying, team is liking Bradley Beal a little bit more. They're trying to implement him more because they know that they can't trade him because he has a no trade clause. So I wouldn't be shocked if Bradley Beal is on this team next year. And the only person out of the big three gone is Kevin Durant. I think Kevin Durant has played his last. In fact, I think reports are pretty much saying that Kevin Durant's camp and the Suns are working together to get him up out of there, out of respect. It's crazy. It's crazy that Matt Ishbia could be one of the worst owners. Just decision making. In a small year span, one of the worst owners in basketball history. Whew, that is a elite class. Oh man, you stayed to the end of the video. I appreciate you. If you like what you saw, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss any content from your boy. You can also go back and watch past episodes, past clips, and don't forget that the Unpopular Podcast new episodes drop every Wednesday and Saturday. Appreciate you.